I wrote a book called The 5 Levels of Leadership, okay? It's a bestseller. It's in the corporate world. It sold millions of copies. But when I started doing the 5 levels of leadership, I started clear back in the late 1980s, and leadership was not a dynamic word back then. In fact, if you would go into a bookstore, you wouldn't even find a leadership book there. You'd find management books. And, Peter Drucker, the management guru, in fact, he mentored me. It was management. And so when I said I want to teach the 5 levels of leadership, nobody wanted to hear it. And so all of a sudden I said, I want to teach the 5 levels of influence. And the seminar became a huge success. I traveled literally around the world teaching the 5 levels of influence. How do you increase your influence? And how do you go step by step, level by level, until you really have the influence that you want to have to be able to sell, to market, to influence the people around you? And so what I'm going to teach is the laws of leadership. And before I give you the foundation of this, and let me just say, I need to say 2 things. I wrote a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and one of the laws in that book is the law of the lid, L-I-D. And the law of the lid just very simply says how well you lead determines how well you succeed. That's so true. How well you influence determines how well you succeed. And we all have a leadership lid. And my leadership lid is, I don't know what it is, but from a 1 to a 10, there's a certain level of leadership competence I have. And let's say I'm an average leader from a 1 to 10. Let's say I'm a 5 out of a 1 to 10. That means that what my business is, my sales, my influence, it's all going to come here, and it's going to be confined. It's going to be held down by my leadership lid. And so if I'm a 5 leader, average, my success, influence, my business is going to be a 4. Let me tell you what's never happened in the history of the world. It's never happened where I was a 5 leader, and my business, my influence, just rose above that lid, and I just kept growing. That's never happened in the history of the world, so it's not going to happen with you. It's just not going to happen with me. So it's very important for us to understand how to lift our lid, because, excuse me, because I'm asked by people all the time. They'll say, John, are leaders born? And, I always laugh and say, of course they are. I've never met an unborn leader, okay? But what they're really asking is not, are leaders born? They're really asking is that, when you come into this world, are there some people they're going to lead, and so they get to go in the front of the line, and some people they got to follow, so they go in the back of the line. And what I want you to know is that you can learn to be a leader. You can learn to lead better than you lead today. And I know that because I have the largest leadership training company in the world. We've trained 6 million leaders in every country of the world. Okay, so we got leadership development down. We got it. So if you're 5 as a leader, then your influence factor, your sales factor, your business, it's going to be a 4. But if you can learn to lead better, you can go from a 5 to a 6 to a 7, maybe up to an 8. Now, as soon as I lift that ceiling, guess what happens to my influence, my business, my sales? They follow my leadership. And that's essential for me as I'm getting ready to teach you the 5 levels of leadership for you to understand. You can lift your lid. You can lead better tomorrow than you are today, but you have to know how to do it. I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. The second law in the 21 laws of leadership that I want to talk about just a moment is the law of process. And the law of process just simply says leaders develop daily, not in a day. So this is not a quick fix. This is not like a lecture and you hear it and an hour later you're just going to be an amazing person or amazing leader. But there is a process that helps us to really learn how to lead that makes us successful. And it's the process I'm going to teach you now, because the 5 levels of leadership is a process. How do you and I go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4 to level 5? So what I'm going to do is, while I teach you this, every once in a while there'll be a visual that will come on the screen that'll kind of help you see each level visually, and then of course it'll come back to me and I'll teach it. So let's start with level 1. It's the first level. And I call level 1 the position level. And there's a word that goes with this leadership position. When you get a leadership position, the word that I associate with that is rights. I mean, you get certain rights. In other words, very simply, once you get a leadership position, you have certain rights where people, they follow you because they have to. And why do they have to follow you? Because you're the designated leader. So they're in your department, they're in your group, and so you're the designated leader. So pretty much every day I follow you. I may not like you. You may not even be a good leader, but you have this title and you have a position. Now, this is the lowest level of leadership, and here's the problem. It's the lowest level leadership, but most people think it's the highest level. And so therefore, when they get a leadership position, they get all excited and say, oh my gosh, I just became a leader. No, you didn't become a leader. You just got a leadership position. There's a difference between having a leadership position and being able to lead well. In fact, I often say the position doesn't make the leader makes the position. And so this is absolutely huge because we all start here. By the way, there's nothing wrong with level 1. We all start we get a leadership position in the company. You probably have done that at Fortinet. Now, here's what I want you to understand. It's a place to start. It's not a good place to stay. And yet most people, because they think leadership is position or title, when they get a position and title, they just say, well, I'm a leader. They may be, they may not be. I don't know. But I know this. If you just hold on to level number 1 and you don't advance and you don't grow and you don't develop, then your leadership influence, which is key in sales, obviously, is going to be very, very limited. It's a place to start. It's not a place to stay. Now, what's wonderful about having a leadership position is it gives you an opportunity to practice leadership. And this is huge because how do you develop yourself as a leader? How do I develop myself as a leader? By practice. People don't become leaders by what they know. They don't become leaders by what they read. They don't even become leaders by hearing a lecture like I'm giving you right now. They only become leaders by practicing leadership. And one of the beautiful things about level 1 is because you're a designated positional leader, it gives you an opportunity to practice leadership. It gives you an opportunity to find out if people do follow you, to find out if you can help people and lift them, and to find out if people do like your ideas and want to go where you're going, and they want to do what I'm doing. So when you look at level 1, the position level, don't rest on it. Don't take level 1 and say, okay, now I've arrived. And you instead take the position and the mindset, I am now in a position to really develop my leadership. I can practice my leadership. I can try leading. I can begin to grow. I can begin to develop myself. And it's so, this is a great opportunity. If you've just got a position of leadership in Fortinet, be grateful and say, okay, now that I have a leadership position, I'm going to practice leadership. It's in the practicing of leadership that you begin to develop yourself and you begin to develop others. Okay, so we start with position. Don't make the mistake of thinking that makes you a leader. It just gives you leadership opportunity. Level number 2 is where things really begin to change. Level number 1 is the position level. The key word is rights, and people follow you because they have to. Now let me show you level number 2. Level number 2 is the permission level, and the key word in permission is relationships. And on level number 2, people follow you because they want to. Now we have just made a big jump. We've begun with a level 1 leader who has a position, and because he or she has that position, people have to follow them. So they get in line. You may be a good leader, you may be a terrible leader, I don't know. But here's what I know. At level number 1, when you just have a leadership position, there's very little energy at that level. In fact, at level 1, people are always asking themselves this question: what's the least I have to do to stay on the team? They're not asking how much can I give, how much can I do? And here's the reason why. Level 1 has no energy to it. You show me a positional company, and I'll show you a company that has no energy to go beyond what's expected, so therefore they never excel. That's level 1. But all of a sudden, when you get to level 2, it begins to change. Somebody asked me the other day, it said, John, describe a level 1 company. And the best way I can describe a level 1 positional company is that if quitting time is at 5 o'clock, at 4:30, people are clearing their desk. They're in a countdown mode. They've been waiting all day for their, they want to say, well, why are they clearing their desk? Because at 5 o'clock, they want to make a fast exit. So they're clearing their desk, and, 4:40, they're walking around saying goodbye to everybody, and 4:50, they're going to the restroom, and 4:55, they're sitting they're putting their track shoes on, man. They're getting down in a starting position. They think they're Cape Canaveral. They're in a countdown mode. 5, 4, 3, 2. And at 5 o'clock, they're all gone. They're all gone. In fact, you walk through the office at 5:03, and it's a ghost town, and you say, what happened? Then you run to the window and you look out you look out there, and the last car in the parking lot's peeling out. Now what happened? It's very simple. You see, at level number 1, people are always going to give you their least, because they're not following you because you're good. They're following you because you have a position, a title of leader. Level 2, here's where the magic begins. Just like level 1 lacks energy, level 2 is full of energy. Now, why is there energy at level 2? Because of relationships. At level 2, people follow you not because they have to. They follow you because they want to. And why do they follow you? They follow you because you like them and they like you. And you're developing a connection and you're developing a relationship. And when people begin to like each other, now all of a sudden, they give more energy to the project. Hey, at 5 o'clock, they're not clearing their desk. They may still be around the table discussing something that's going to help build the business even better. What has happened? The relationship has caused the connection, which has created the energy. So I tell leaders, as soon as possible, get off of level 1. Now, when I say get off of level 1, that doesn't mean you lost your title. But these levels, what you want to understand is they build on each other. So level number 2 has a foundation under it. It has a level 1 under it. And the higher you go on the levels, the bigger your foundation, the more solid your foundation, the deeper your foundation, so that your leadership continually strengthens. So at level number 2, people follow you because they want to. And so this is where leaders connect with their people. You see, here's the difference. If I'm a positional level, it's your job on the team to connect with me. If I'm a permissional level, and I call that level number 2 permission, because the people give you permission to lead them because they like you. They didn't get a choice on level 1, but on level 2, they do. So if I'm on the permission level and you like me and I like you, the energy begins to increase. Now we're beginning to connect. And there are 3 characteristics of a level 2 leader that I want to make sure that you get, because this is essential for you to be successful. This is essential for you to lift that leadership lid I talked about a few minutes ago. Here are the 3 things that leaders do really well at level number 2 to connect and relate with the people. Number 1 is that they listen. The best leaders are the best listeners. In fact, here's what I've discovered about leadership. Great leaders ask great questions. In fact, I wrote a book on that a few years ago. And it's just a fact. Great leaders ask good questions. Now, why are they asking questions? Because they're trying to find their people. Remember this, as a leader, you have to find your people before you can lead your people. Again, level 1, you're the position leader. You say, you find me. Level 2, no, I'm going to find you. And how do we find you? We find you by asking questions. And when we ask questions, what do these leaders do? They do 3 things. They listen, they learn, and then they lead. Don't miss this. They get all of their leadership cues by listening to you. They walk slowly through the crowd. They're listening to what you think. They're asking you questions. They're asking you, how would you do this? And what do you think about this? And they're asking your opinion, and they're inclusive, and they're bringing you, here, sit at the leadership table with me. Let's talk a while. So they listen, they learn, and then they lead. Now their leadership is effective. Why? Because they found you. And once a person has been found, once a person has been heard, they now really enjoy being part of the team. This is essential for connecting with people. And so on level number 2, your goal as a leader is to really find the people, listen to them, learn from them, and now you lead off of them. You see, let's talk about vision for a second. How does vision expand? How do we take the vision from me to we? Because the vision has to always go beyond you. People need to have ownership of the vision until they talk about, this is what we are trying to accomplish, not this is what they want to accomplish, not what he or she wants to accomplish. It's, hey, we want to accomplish this. Well, how do we take the vision from me to we? It's done on level 2, relationally, when you listen to people. Because when you listen to people, you begin to lead according to where they are, and all of a sudden, you're connecting with them, and they're having an ownership in the journey. So a level 2 leader is a relational leader, and they become relational by listening and by learning and then by leading. That's one. The second characteristic of a level 2 leader is that they observe well. They really watch. They watch. I had a wonderful mentor, John Wooden, who was declared by Sports Illustrated in the last century as the greatest coach. He was the coach of UCLA Bruins, and had 10 national championships, and for several years, he and I were close, and he just mentored me and taught me so many things. And Coach Wooden would look at his players, and he would say to them, "Don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do." And he would say, "John, anybody can say anything." He said, in fact, he wouldn't name even the captain of his basketball team at the beginning of the season. He wanted his players to play a few games, and then he picked the captain because he said, "John, I got to watch the players play. I got to find out during the tight game when the game's on the line, there's just a few seconds left." He said, I got to find out who wants the ball, who wants to take responsibility to win this game for us." He said, "Don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do." It's at level number 2, this relationship level, where you're listening, you're learning, you're leading, and you're watching your people. Because it's their actions, not their words, that determine the potential success of your department. It just is always that way. So level 2 leaders, they do a really good job of just kind of connecting, listening, and relating and observing to where the people are. The third thing a level 2 leader does really well, they not only observe well, they not only listen well. The third characteristic of a level 2 leader is that they serve really well. They like to serve their people. Now, that's totally opposite of a level 1 leader. You see, a level 1 leader wants to be served. I'm the leader, and so what have you done for me today? A level number 2 totally reverses this. And they say, no, what I really want to do is I want to serve you. And they do it by adding value to people. They everyday serve. I have, in the John Maxwell Enterprise, we have 7 companies. And so I may be in a restaurant and somebody will walk up to me that I don't even know, and they'll shake my hand, they'll introduce themselves, and they'll say, I just got hired by your company. And they'd say, Mr. Maxwell, I work for you. And, I smile and I say, hey, sit down here with me for a moment. Let's talk. I mean, let me help you. First of all, my name's John. I'm your friend. You don't need to call me Mr. Maxwell. I'm your friend. I said, secondly, you don't work for me. In fact, I work for you. In fact, we work for each other. I don't have slaves. I don't have people working for me. I have people working with me. I'm working with people. We're not enamored by titles. We're not enamored by position. I don't look at you and say, well, I don't work with you. I'm above you. Good Lord, you got to go down and work with the people. Like, no. There's a spirit of adding value. And by the way, you add value to people that you value. So it begins with the fact that we value everybody. And because we value everybody, we add value to people. And so I told him, I said, you don't work for me. I hope sometime I can serve you. I hope I can do something that will make your work even better. And if there is, let me know. And here's my cell number. Just call me if I can help you. Now, this is absolutely huge. Because now on level number 2, we are connected. We are relationally strong. And it gets into the fact that as a leader, level 2, I genuinely care for my people. I was asked to speak a few years ago to the opening session of the United Nations. And when I went to New York City, they asked me to speak to all the ambassadors of the world on leadership. And they said, we're going to give you 2 hours to do that. Well, that was a real challenge. It was a great opportunity, but I asked myself, how am I going to do this? I mean, we're having ambassadors from every country of the world that are going to be in this room. And they come from all kinds of cultures, different, and all kinds of government. I mean, we got democracies. We have kingdoms. We have kings. We got democracy. We have kingdoms. We got socialistic countries. If I'm going to talk about leadership, I got to get us all on the same page somehow. And I began to ask myself, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? So after giving it a lot of thought, I did a teaching that was just really went well at the United Nations. And the teaching was, 3 questions followers ask of their leaders. And I said, this is regardless of country, culture, what kind of government you have. I said, if people are following you, they're really asking 3 questions about you. And you need to be able to answer these questions. And the 3 questions are very simple. Do you care for me? I mean, think about it. Do you really want to follow somebody that doesn't like you? Question number 2 is, can you help me? I mean, the reason that you're on the team, the reason you're following the leader is for that leader to help you. I mean, you need somebody to get you to the next level. So, can you help me? And then question number 3 is can I trust you? Can I trust you? Now, isn't it interesting, those 3 questions, do you care for me? That's a level 2 question. It's all about relationships. The third question, can I trust you? That's a level 2 question. The middle question, can you help me, is going to be a level 3 question, and I'll come to that in a few moments. Here's the point, and I don't want you to miss it. The point is very simple. If you're going to be a great leader, you have to relationally connect with your people. You got to love them. You got to care for them. You got to want to add value to them. You've got to serve them. And the moment that you begin to do all these things, your leadership just begins to be empowered and it begins to grow, and it goes to a whole new level. But why did it go to a whole new level? It went to a whole new level because now you have engendered trust. Trust is the foundation of great leadership. It's what people stand on. It's what people lean on. They want to be able to say, my leader is going to look out for the best for me, that my leader is going to do the right thing for me. That's why I tell leaders all the time, when you stop liking people, stop leading people, because now what are you going to do? You're going to manipulate people. You see, there's a fine line between manipulating people and motivating people. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. You see, leaders, what they all have in common is that they see more than others see, and they see before others see. That's just a fact. When I say leaders see more than others see, it means that they just have a bigger picture. That's a leader sees more. But a leader also sees before others see. Wow. In other words, I not only see a bigger picture, I see the picture quicker, sooner than others. Now, the fact that I can see before others see puts me at an incredible advantage, because if you can see something first, you can go after it while everybody else, they don't even know what they want. And so, it's huge when you get a head start. Leadership gives you a head start over others. So the question is not, are you going to have a head start? The question is, are you going to use it for your advantage, or are you going to use it for the advantage of others? You don't want to miss this. I remember several years ago, I was having a dinner with Gail Devers. And Gail Devers is the most decorated female track athlete in Olympic history in the United States. And she had literally won Olympic medals. She's a runner. She's speed. And she had won, I mean, it's just unbelievable. She had won medals in 3 different Olympics. In fact, the night I was having dinner with her and her husband, she was training for her 4th Olympic. I mean, she was running races against girls that were young enough to be her daughter. I mean, this is just an amazing lady. And so we're having a great conversation on leadership, because she had read some of my books and she had some questions she wanted to ask. And so I thought I would have fun toward the end. And I said, Gail, I think if you and I ran a race, like 100 yards, I said, I think I could win. And she just looked at me and said, you're kidding. I said, no. I said, no, I'm not kidding. I think I could win. In fact, she looked at her husband. She said, did you hear him? He thinks he can beat me in a race. And then she looks back and she looks at my body, and she can't put all this together. It's way beyond her. And she's about ready to take off her high heels and take me out front of this restaurant and, let me eat dust. And I looked at her and said, now, Gail, listen to me very carefully, because I've thought this through carefully. If you and I raced 100 yards and you gave me an 80-yard head start, I could win. Well, of course you could win if you have an 80-yard head start. Now, honestly, I wanted to say 70. I really did. I thought, man. But I wasn't sure if I had a 70-yard head start, I could really beat her. But for 80 yards, this fat boy could roll across the line. Just trust me, I could win. Now, here's the whole point of this little story. The fastest person doesn't win the race. It's the person who starts first. If you let a person get enough head start, they can win any race against any person. Leadership gives you a head start. It lets you see things before others see them. So now we've got this head start advantage. The question is, are we going to win the race for ourselves, or are we going to win the race for our people? And level 2 leaders, they care for their people. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They care for their people in such a way that at level number 2, they really want their people to succeed. And so because of that, their people began to prosper. The people began to learn. The people began loving being on the team. Why is all this happening? Because relationships are working. And relationships are the foundation of leadership. So now we're developing ourselves as a leader, and we're about to go to level number 3. Remember, you don't leave the previous level, you stand on it. So the higher you go, the bigger, the better, the deeper your foundation of leadership. Level 1, position level. People follow you because they have to. That's where we start. No problem. You just don't want to stay there. Level 2 is the permission level. The key word there is relationships. People follow you because they want to. This is where energy happens. Energy happens at level 2 if you're a level 2 leader. But you still haven't gone as high as you can. You haven't yet become the leader as Fortinet says that you were meant to be. So let's go to level number 3. Level number 3 is all about production. It's the production level. And the key word at level number 3 is results. At this level, people follow you. People follow you because of what you've done for the organization. In other words, you are a producer. You know, when people talk about you, they talk about you in the fact that it's much better since you're on the team. Your bottom line is better. Your sales have increased. You're a producer. And this is an essential, important level to be on. And let me explain to you why. Level 3 is where you get the credibility to lead. Now, level number 2, because you like people and people like you, they let you lead. But at level 3, you now gain what I call leadership credibility. And what do I mean by that? It's very simple. Once you produce, once you are a personal success yourself, now people want to follow you. And why? Because you win. You succeed. You bring home results. I mean, Fortinet loves you because they look at you and you do good in sales and you just keep increasing the bottom line. And you increase the bottom line not by cutting the price of the product. You increase the bottom line because you're proven to add value to people. And once people know that you add value to them, you don't need to reduce the price of your project at all. I mean, you're worthy of the price if you can produce. And so level 3 is where credibility really allows you to have the privilege of leading. People begin to raise their hand and say, I would like to be on your team. Let me explain it this way. Let's say LeBron James and I were going to have a basketball game, and so we're with you right now, and we want a half a dozen of you to be on our side, and so LeBron's going to pick first. Now, he's one of the greatest basketball players that's ever played. So when LeBron looks out at the audience, you got your hand in the air and you're saying, choose me, choose me. Oh, LeBron, oh my gosh, pick me. Now, why do you want to be on LeBron James' team? Well, it's very simple. You know if he picks you, you're going to win because he's a great basketball player. Now, when it comes my turn to choose, you don't have your hands in the air. In fact, you're ducked behind chairs. You're hiding from me. You don't want me to pick you. You don't want a 75-year-old overweight man to pick you to be on the basketball team. You're hiding from me. You see, you want to be on the team that's going to win. Well, when you become a level 3 leader and you produce results, that's exactly what the team becomes. They become winners. And everybody wants to be on your team. Now, at level 3, there are 3 characteristics. Again, there are 3 qualities that level 3 leaders exhibit all the time, and people see them. Let me give them to you. Number 1 is you lead by example. You understand that the best leadership is not what you say. The best leadership is what you do. Now, at level 3, you do those things that bring results. So now it's show and tell time. It's just not telling people what you're going to do. It's showing people exactly what you have done. And now people they're convinced of following you because the proof is in the stats. The proof is in you now are leading by example. Why? Here the greatest The greatest motivational principle in the world is this one. People do what people see. That's a fact. So when people say, the people on my team, they're really not producing. You know why they're not producing? They don't see you producing. The moment that you begin to produce, the moment that you begin to bring home the results, now you are a visual example of how they can do it. Now, this is huge. You don't want to miss this. And so level 3, you gain the credibility to lead, not because of what you say. You gain the credibility to lead, but by what you are doing. There's a difference between a travel agent and a tour guide. A travel, if you want to go somewhere, you can call a travel agent. They can buy you tickets for your transportation. They can get your hotel. They can set up a tour. But when you think of a travel agent, that when you finally come to the office, they'll give you tickets and, have a great trip. And then they'll say, hey, take pictures. I've never been there before. You see, most leaders are like travel agents. They send people where they've never been themselves. You don't want to be a travel agent leader. You want to be a tour guide leader. Now, there's a difference. You see, the tour guide leader, they meet you at the bus and say, let's get on the bus together. I'm going to take you to museums in this city that I've been to hundreds of times. I've lived here my life. Just follow me. Just stay with me, and I'll make sure that you see things you've never seen and you experience things you never experienced. You want to be a tour guide leader. Level 3 leaders, they're tour guides. They basically say, get on the bus. I'm highly successful myself. I increase the bottom line for my company. I make a lot of money. Watch me. Follow me. Just, the greatest words a leader can share with his or her people are the words, follow me. The moment I can say that, I am a terrific leader because I have now the credibility of a leader, okay? Now, 3 characteristics of leaders at this level. I've given you one. They lead by example. The second characteristic of a leader on this level is that they create momentum. Level 3 leaders are momentum makers, okay? Now, in your company, you've got momentum makers. They're level 3 leaders. You also probably have some momentum takers. They suck the momentum out of your company, and you maybe even have a few momentum breakers. But level 3 is all about creating momentum. And so how does that happen? Because let me just say something about momentum for a moment. The greatest friend a leader has is momentum. Because momentum is a great exaggerator. Momentum has the ability to take something good and exaggerate it until people think it's amazing. And so leaders know that the greatest problem solver that they're ever going to have in their life is momentum. You see, managers try to solve problems. Leaders create momentum. Because what the leaders know is if they create momentum, honestly, the problems will be solved in the company. I mean, to illustrate that, let me just say that, let's take a train on a track. If that train is going 50 miles an hour down a track, okay, and in front of it is a barrier, okay, oh my gosh, I'm talking about a real obstacle here, a 5-foot thick concrete wall, steel reinforced, okay, that's a barrier. It's on the track. If that train is going 50 miles an hour, it can hit that concrete steel reinforced barrier. It can hit it, smash it, and knock it off the tracks and keep on going. Now, why was it able to have this problem, this obstacle on the tracks, smash it, and keep on going? It's because it had momentum. Momentum solved the problem. Momentum allowed that train to get through something that was almost like insurmountable. It was a pretty huge, mega barrier. Momentum allowed that train to keep going. That's the power of momentum. Now, that same train, let's say it's stopped dead on the tracks. It's not going anywhere. It's not moving. It's dead still. Okay? If you put a 1-inch block, just 1 inch, in front of the driving wheels of that train, it can't get started. Now, isn't that interesting? Without momentum, a 1-inch block will keep the train from moving. Now, get this, don't miss this. Without momentum, a 1-inch obstacle is a real problem. With momentum, same train, same track, a 5-foot thick concrete, steel, and reinforced wall can't stop it. You see, that's why I tell people all the time, your problem is not your problem. But yet so many people, they get focused on problems. The problem that isn't a problem becomes a problem, not because it was a problem. The problem was they didn't know the problem wasn't a problem, and so they made a problem that wasn't a problem a problem. Okay, don't try to take notes on that. Let me talk to you for a moment. The problem isn't the size of the problem. Problems get fixed and taken care of. 80% of all problems in any company are solved with momentum. And at level number 3, that's what you have. You've got great momentum. You've got great thrust. You've got great power to overcome the obstacles of your company. Now, so far, we've talked about 3 levels of leadership. Level 1 is where we start. It's a good place to start, bad place to stay. It's the position level. People only follow you because they have to. Level 2 is the permission level. This is where relationships kick in. You like the people, they like you. Now people follow you because they want to. Energy happens at level 2. Energy. Now at level 3, that's the production level, and the key word there is results, and people now follow you because of what you've produced, what you've done for the company. And at level number 3, you get momentum. And with momentum, most of the problems are solved in the company. Let's put it this way. With momentum, leading is a lot easier. That's why in a sports contest, if one team really gets momentum on their side, what does the opposing coach do? Calls a timeout. Now, why does he call or why does she call a timeout? It's very simple. They're trying to break the momentum of the other team. They're trying to get them out of that rhythm. So level number 3 is where momentum happens. Level number 3, the third thing that happens at level 3, just one more quick thing, is you attract better people to you because you produce. Let me explain it this way. Remember when I did in the beginning the law of the lid? And if you were a 5 leader with leadership competence, your company would be a 4. Okay, you got that. In the law of attraction, in my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, this law of magnetism says you attract who you are, not who you want. Very true law. So here's what happens. If I'm a level 5 leader, I attract 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. What I don't attract to my team is a 9 or a 10. 9s and 10s don't follow 5s, never have, never will. But if I grow as a leader, I get up to a 6 and 7. Every time I grow as a leader, guess what? I attract a better person. So when you can produce, when you have the credibility of a person that gives results to your company, you're going to attract better people to you because it's like the little LeBron James illustration. People want to be on your team. Okay, so let's go to level 4. Now, level number 4 is really, this is the level I really try to get people to go to. I mean, I know there's 5 levels of leadership, but I am very happy if I can get you to level number 4, because level number 4 is the people development level, okay? This is where you develop other people. And the key word at level number 4 is reproduction, okay? Now, people follow you not only because of what have you done for the organization. They not only follow you because they like you, they follow you because of what you have done for them personally. Because now they're a better person because you are a people developer. In other words, they're saying, I can tell you right now, when I came to the company, man, I wasn't very effective at all, but they took me under their wings and they trained me and they equipped me, and now look what I can do. And by the way, great loyalty happens at level 4 because people now look at you and say, personally, you've bettered my life. At level 3, you bettered the organization, but level 4, I'm a better person because of you. So this is a terrific level to be on, and it's really how the company thrives. Because if I were to ask you, if I could, 2 questions about the success that you have and the success you want your company to have, the 2 questions I would ask you is, what are you doing to develop yourself? And that's why I love the theme that you have for it, Nat, of helping people become a better leader. I would ask you, what are you doing to develop yourself? And the second question I would ask you is, what are you doing to develop the people on your team? Now, when you develop yourself and grow, you add. When you develop others, you multiply. And that's the difference between levels 3 in leadership and level 4. At level 3, you're getting better, you're producing, but you're adding. At level number 4, you're now compounding, you're multiplying. Because it's just not me producing, but I've got 6 people on my team, and we all are having a good year, and I'm developing leaders, and I'm teaching them how to develop other people. So we're going to keep multiplying ourselves, because only leaders can attract leaders, and only leaders can develop leaders. And you teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. And so now at level number 4, we're really doing well, because I'm not only producing, but you're producing, and now we're training you to lead, and things just get better. So what is it at level 4, this 4th level of production? What is it at level 4 that makes it so magical? Well, there are 3 keys to reproducing people. There's 3 keys in developing people around you and developing leaders around you. And let me give them to you. There are 3 qualities that a level 4 leader does very well. Number 1 is recruiting. Level 4 leaders recruit well. I was having lunch one day with my friend Lou Holtz, and we were talking, and he's such a funny guy. He was a great coach. He was a football coach in college. He coached 6 different teams. Every team that he went to as a coach had a losing record the year before he arrived, and every team within 2 years that he did coach went to a bowl game. And, Notre Dame became a national champion under him. So Lou Holtz and I were having lunch one day, and he said, John, I've coached good players and I've coached bad players. He said, I'm just a better coach with good players. And I just laughed and said, boy, isn't that true with all of us? We're all a better coach. We're all a better leader with good people around us. And so level 4 leaders, they really reproduce themselves, and they develop people well. And there's a reason why they recruit so well. They have a clear picture of the person they want on their team. And this is essential to the success of your business. The better person I recruit, the higher my odds that I can really develop that person to great success. And this is essential for my development. So, when people, sometimes they'll pick me up at the airport, and they don't know who I am. They've never seen me before. And so there's 2 ways they pick me up. One is sometimes they just send somebody to pick me up, and I go to the baggage area, and there's some person there with hand in the air with my name on it. And basically that person says, I don't know what you look like, but if you'll just look and see your name up here, you come up, identify yourself, you find me, and then I'll take you to where you ever go. And that's the way a lot of people recruit leaders. They just say, we need leaders. We need leaders. They got the sign in the air. But there's another kind of person that, when I walk into the baggage area, they come right up to me and they shake my hand and they say, hey, John, we came to pick you up. Now, how did they know? Well, they went online. They saw my picture. They maybe have a book that has my picture. But they had a picture of me before they got to the airport. And so when they saw me, they immediately knew to connect. Well, highly successful leaders, that's what they do really well. They have a picture of who they want to recruit and the qualities they're wanting to see in that person. And so when they see it, in fact, I tell people all the time, I wrote a book called the 21 Qualities of a Leader. And I tell them all the time, it's nothing but a picture book of what a leader looks like. I said, get those 21 qualities of a leader, and then when you do your interview, look for those different qualities. And when you find one, check it off. And after a while, you know whether you've got a potential leader or not. But at level 4, these leaders, they do a really good job with recruiting. Secondly, they do a real good job with positioning people. In other words, when they it's the Jim Collins stuff, okay? You got to get people on the right bus. Well, you not only need to get them on the right bus, but you need to get them in the right seat, okay? And they really understand the value of positioning people, and the fact that find out what their strength is and then put them there. And I tell leaders all the time, this is a totally different lecture, but I say when you're looking at your people and you're trying to position them, you have to ask 3 questions that start with an R. What are they required to do? What gives us the greatest return when they do it? The results. And thirdly, what's rewarding to them? And every leader needs to find out of every player. What do you have to do? What's required of you? What are you really good at? What gives you the great return? And what do you love? What's rewarding to you? And when you find those 3 things, you position them according to the 3 R's, and all of a sudden they begin to really produce well and begin to succeed well. There's one more quality of a level 4 leader, and that is they just equip really good. They're good equippers, okay? They just know how to help people become successful in the business. Now, I have the largest equipping organization in the world. We've trained over 6 million leaders in every country of the world. We're the only company that has done it that much. And we really know how to equip people. And I'm going to just take maybe 2 minutes, and I'm about to wrap up the talk. But there are 5 steps to equipping people really well. And they're simple steps, and every one of you can do them. But if you will do them, I will promise you'll begin to reproduce other people and reproduce other leaders under you. So let me give you those 5 steps. First of all, step 1 is I do it. And just simply put, before you train anybody to do anything, you have to do it yourself. Again, what did I say? People do what people see. So the first step of equipping somebody really is you do it yourself. Now, once that you have done it successfully yourself, which is really a level 3 leader, now you bring somebody alongside of you and you go to step number 2. Step 1 is I do it. Step 2, I do it and you're with me. And now we're going to spend some time and you're going to watch me do what I do really well. And the reason you're going to watch me is because leadership is visual. Stanford research says 89% of what you and I learn and know, we saw visually first. 10% audio, 1% through the other senses. And so I do it and you're with me. Well, you're with me. You're watching me. And after I, finish the sell, you're asking me questions. How did you do that? And why did you say that? And what made you go over there? And so it's I do it stage 1 or step 1. Step 2 is I do it and you're with me. Step 3 is you do it and I'm with you. Anyway, there comes a time when I just hand the baton off to you and say, here, it's yours now. You run with it. It's all yours. And now I'm coaching you. Now you're playing the game, and I'm tweaking you. I'm making you better. After you do that sales call, we sit down. And I say, now, okay, let me give you a couple of observations, and I make you better. I make you better. And then step number 4 in that equipping process is you do it. I mean, there comes a time when I say, hey, it's yours. You got it. Now, here's where the equipping failure begins. Most equipping in most companies stops at step 4. I do it, you're with me. You do it, I'm with you. You do it. Well, once you do it, I say, okay, I've equipped them. But there's another step, and this is where the magic is in level 4 leadership. Step number 5 is they do it and someone is with them. Simply stated, here's how this works. We never equip anybody who doesn't make a commitment to equip somebody else. So our equipping never stops with the person we equipped. It continues and reproduces itself on a multiplication level. Level 4 leaders, they recruit well, they position well, and they equip people extremely, extremely well. Now, I'm going to wrap it up by level number 5. I really don't need to teach level 5 because level 5 is automatic. You see, on level 1, the company gives you that. Levels 2 and 3 and 4, you earn. Level 5 is what I call the Pinnacle level. The key word at this level is respect. And at this level, people follow you because of who you are and because of what you've done. You truly now are bigger than life. And they look at you and they just say, you're an amazing person. This is where you begin to live a life of significance in your life and in the life of others.
Chris, what has it been, 20 plus years that you and I have been in this environment? And we've talked about growth, I guess, every way that we can. And yet today, it's just as relevant in your 20 plus years of tenure, executive on our team, running the nation, running around the nation, speaking, and yet you're still growing. I know that about you, and I'm the same way. I've just been challenged. Even most recently, I've been challenged to grow significantly. And so, hey, I never get tired of this subject, and I never get tired of this subject talking to it with John, 75 years young.
Still doing it.
Still doing it. Never get tired of working alongside of people like you that's still doing it. So, man, I'm excited.
Yeah, when I found out that this was the topic we were going to talk about, I was like, this is so appropriate because I don't know where I would be today if I didn't work in an environment. I know you would say the same thing. And then to be modeled by John. It's not you're on the road with John. You guys are at different conferences, speakers, and meetings. And without a doubt, I always see him taking notes. Then you get in the car and you're like, man, here's what I learned. What did you learn? You better be ready to answer that question because he just models that. And he's kind of given that to us. So much so that I brought this for those that are watching on YouTube.
I love it.
Okay, this is a little show and tell.
I love it.
I did it yesterday too in our leadership team meeting. I'm in a show and tell mode. We're going back to elementary school.
I like it.
But that's all right. So much so that as you helped us cast vision and come up with our mission and what's important in our organization, and we do believe that everybody deserves to be led well. Obviously, you wanted people first. We get that. That's 100% us. The second one we have on our card, and every single one of our team members have this, is it is about growth. And on there, it talks about we invest in growth every day. Doesn't matter whether you're 18, 19, 20, when you and I began to think about what that looked like, or even now. And I won't mention our age as we get into this. But we also believe that it happens daily, not in a day. And what I love about that is that John says if we want things to get better, then we've got to go after it on a daily basis. Now, I'm going to take you down a little bit, if you don't mind. I want to take you down a little bit of a different path than maybe normal. I want to go away from the notes for a minute, and we're going to come back. And we've heard John talk about everything worthwhile is uphill.
Yep.
And, man, growth can be an uphill battle.
Yep.
It doesn't often happen when we're going downhill and things are good. And I want to talk a little bit. I want to kind of lift the curtain on some things that you've been growing personally. And I think it's so appropriate because you were so intentional behind this. And it started. I think growth happens in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You can observe it and learn. You can teach and learn. You can get feedback and learn. Matter of fact, I was on a call today with one of the organizations that we work with, and it was Matt McLean with Wealth Advisors. Let me just read this real quick to you. It says, man, feedback is a gift. It's where you grow. When given by the right person in the right manner and received in the right way. And I thought, oh, that's so good. Tell me that again. I'm going to be with Mark later, and I want to share this with him. Received in the right way. Here's where I'm going. You started a journey intentionally the fourth quarter of last year.
Yep.
We called it the family rooms. And Mark set the stage, and you said, hey, family rooms sometimes get uncomfortable. I want feedback. And that began a growth journey that I haven't seen in you in a long time, and we're going to unpack that just a minute. But what I want you to do is I want you to take us back. And what was the intentionality behind saying, man, I want feedback. I want these family room conversations. I want to grow. I want us as an organization and a culture to grow. Talk to us a little bit about that to set the stage of now what you're doing, and we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Well, I started getting a little bit of feedback from teammates, and I started getting feedback from key relationships like our thought leaders that perhaps our culture was missing a beat or was missing a little bit of something. Come to find out, it was we were saying more than what we were doing. We were not completely matched up in our actions. So it started there, and then that caused me to go, I've got a problem in the organization. What is our problem? What is that? And this is not at all a negative thing. This is very powerful and positive as we unpack this, I'm sure. But I went to John, and I did something that I do all the time with John. I state the problem. I see if we have agreement on our problem. And then I'm always prepared with 3 suggestions to remedy the problem and then a recommendation. Here's 3 suggestions, John, but here's my recommendation. And John and I just have this formula for how we have led him, the visionary, the owner, and me, the CEO, the implementer of his vision. Well, that has changed a little bit, but John's mentoring in my life has not changed. We still have that same formula. Yeah. So I went to John. I said, here's my problem. And what was interesting, and I won't dig into this because that's not the subject today, John didn't agree with me. Now, we beat it up for about 10 hours of playing time. John, this is why I think this is a problem. Yeah, I think it is the problem. No, it's not the problem, Mark. No, it's not. And finally, after he had listened to me long enough, which was about 10 hours, he identified the real problem. And the real problem was that I needed to roll up the sleeves and get engaged in the lifeblood, in the culture, in the day-to-day rigor of our organization. Yeah. And so that started it. And so the best way I knew to do that as a conclusion to John and I saying, I've got to roll up the sleeves and get involved in what's going on in the organization, were these family rooms, Chris. You were a part of them. And in fact, you were a part of the very first one. I remember this. I had, they were about 12 or 13 of them.
Dedicated a lot of time to it.
And in those family rooms, Chris, a real reoccurring opportunity, challenge, opportunity to really address things in the organization began to bubble up. And it was that. Then we've had a lot of leadership meetings with that. I've validated that, verified that with the leadership team. But it all started with a realization, hey, I think I have a problem. Then it went to the next step, John and I agreeing on the problem in the organization, and then we're beginning to be intentional about fixing it.
And I love the fact that John says the only guarantee that it's going to get better from what you heard, you accepted that feedback. And the hearts were pure. You received it the right way. And John says the only way it's going to get better is if we grow. And you got to do that. So I'm going to go out of order a little bit here. John gave us an incredible growth plan here. And I'm going to go a little bit out of order because I know the process that you went through to do this. The first thing that you did was you said, I'm going to go and I'm going to reflect on what I heard. And you do this every year. The timing of this happened to be pivotal this year for you, but you spent, John mentioned at least 1 hour a week. I think you accomplished a year-long process of that in probably just about 3 days. Talk about then what you heard, what you learned as you're growing through this, and the reflection and how powerful that was and allowed you to come out of that with a tremendous growth plan that we'll talk about after that.
Yeah, so before the growth plan, it started with I read a book, I think I have recommended on the podcast, Chris. It's by Gary Keller, which is one of the founders of Keller Williams. Yeah. Gary Keller wrote a book called The One Thing. And he talks about how that leaders need to synthesize down to that one thing they need to be focused on, and then they need to spend the best part of their day in that. For me, the best part of the day is the morning. So immediately coming out of family rooms, Chris, you'll remember this, I carved out and canceled everything that I did every morning of the week, because I had identified 5 things that needed my undivided attention, 5 things in our organization. And I came out of that family room, I had already carved out every morning was going to be focused on my one thing. And I started focusing for 4 solid weeks, 4 hours a day on one thing in the morning for 4 hours on what I could do from a creativity and from a problem-solving perspective that I could begin focusing focusing on in the organization. So it really started there way before the growth plan that we'll get to. I started really assessing with a clear mind, with an undistracted attention, and then with as much creativity that I could muster in a one-on-one, one-to-myself environment. I began working through how do I creatively go after these 5 areas.
So you go through that, and then you make up your mind, I am going to intentionally grow. Now talk a little bit about the next steps for you. So John says, hey, we're going to make a commitment. So you did the reflection, you're making a commitment. Now for you, that growth looked like many different things. Mentors, books, you're just absorbing content and you are committed. Talk about where your mind went when you said, I know I need to grow and I'm going to absorb as much content as I possibly can. What led you down the path of saying, what resources? How do I tap into this? What does that look like? Let our listeners hear from that, because I think each one of us have challenges like that in our life. And sometimes we don't know how to go about the process, but you've lived out and modeled this, and John's given us his plan, and it's in direct alignment with that.
Yeah, well, one is if you can synthesize down what the real problem is, and you can synthesize it down to as much simplicity as possible, you're going to then be able to build the best comprehensive focused plan available. We distilled it down to, we had a momentum challenge. You're part of the organization last year. Congratulations on Podcast Land. What was it, 46% growth last year. This guy right here that you're seeing, if you're watching YouTube, this guy grew 47%. But now let me say that. What was interesting is I still could come back and say our common problem was momentum.
Correct.
That was with some parts of our organization having best years ever, some teammates having personal best years ever. We still had a momentum problem to what? To the vision that unified us all together. So if you can come up with a common root to the problem, because that'll establish common language when you begin to build this intentionality around a plan. So the problem, and then figure out a way to unify everybody to the same problem. That was a dance. That was a challenge because I got some people sitting across from me that killed it last year, and I had some people on his team that had personal best, and then I had other teammates that we just were not out of the starting blocks yet. So how do I unify everybody on we have a momentum problem? So synthesize it to as much simplicity as possible. That's why we have a word for the year. You have a word for the year. I heard what it was. I've got one. My whole growth plan is around that. Well, the plan to get the organization on the track that it needed that kind of simplicity too. What's the word and how does that word apply to everybody? Because if you can get that word to a simplest form and then you can get everybody seeing their way to embrace the word from how it will help them, now we're on a track to begin to build that plan.
Yeah, it became our rallying cries. In essence, is what you were doing. No matter where each vertical or team was doing, it didn't matter. As a whole, as a team, that became our rallying cry together. So you and I've heard you say simplify a ton of times in the last 90 days. So you simplified the problem, and you go, okay, now I got to grow in that area.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about what you had. And remember, we're trying to keep this podcast under 3 hours.
Yes,
and
exactly.
So, but I know how intentional you were about that and the amount of resources you consumed. Talk about that process.
I'm privileged to have a weekly call with a bunch of leader-minded people. So I ask about 4 people that I really believe could help me in the area of momentum. I said, what do you recommend that I read? What do you recommend that I consume? Got some great feedback. Then I went to my call to hundreds of people and I said, hey, if you've got a book or a recommendation on momentum, let me have it. And I just took all of that, assimilated. There was a lot of redundancy. People recommended the same thing. Then that became at the top of my list. And so I have been, in fact, yesterday in a leadership meeting that you and I were in, somebody brought me another book on momentum. And I'm just consuming that and digesting it. So going back to my 4 hours in the day, I would spend 2 hours reading a book on the subject matter that I had before I even started my 4-hour day. And again, all that comes back to get people to give you input from their perspective with the clarity and the simplicity that you're going to lead the team. Do the clarity and simplicity on what you're going to grow into. And like you said, I cannot remember but one other time maybe that I have been this diligent in being a sponge on content on one piece of subject matter. I have read and consumed. You see it every time I come into a leadership meeting. I give you a new tidbit that I have read to give us common language on what we're going to do.
Yeah. And what I've also seen, and I haven't mentioned this to you, but I watched you walk the fourth quarter and then through the end of the year and the reflection, and there's some discouragement there, certain things, right?
Yep.
All of us have discouragement areas of our life that we wish we grew in, right? But what's been fascinating for me to see, and again, this will be the first time you kind of hearing this out of my mouth, which is when I saw you prioritize that, and I mentioned to you yesterday, this can be so good for the company, but it's been so good for you as a leader because when you prioritize that and this growth and the intentionality of growth that John's talking about here, you become, happier might be a little bit of a soft word, but you become stronger, you become more confident, you almost become more resilient to that uphill battle that we're taking. And what I love about it is you absolutely, John's second point in the plan is you make that commitment public.
Yeah.
And you do that. You talk about it. We're talking about it on the podcast.
Yep.
But more importantly, you share that with specifically our leadership team every time you come in there. And John says early on in the lesson, what are you doing to develop yourself and others? Yeah. And I know that we are growing. I've read more books, not than you have, but that I did in the first couple weeks of last year because of the challenge that you're putting out with us. What's the intentionality behind sharing not only what you're learning, but sharing what you're consuming and how you're doing it with your team?
Three reasons, Chris, that comes to mind immediately. And like Chris said, this was not scripted or prepared, but three reasons. One is accountability. I always grow better on a personal level or at a team level because, like you said, I wrote that down too. John, how are you growing personally, how are you growing your team? I want to put it out there that I want my team, our team, to know that I'm growing. And I'm putting it out there. These are the books I'm reading, and then I come and show you what I'm reading with things that we're doing. That's accountability. The second reason is common language. I want people to know what is driving the intentionality around my leadership right now. What's happening is you're picking up some of those books. Others 100%. Are picking up that book. So the common language is now not only rallying us to the vision and the direction I want to take the organization, it's rallying all of us in how we all are growing. You're growing. Yesterday's leadership meeting, and again, this is just family talk, which I love this podcast, by the way. Yeah. Yesterday, the way we complimented one another was staggering to me. I don't think we've ever complimented one another as much as we did yesterday in that meeting. And I could tell you're reading the books. Ben, you were talking about some of the practices and principles that we're using in the first person. Hey, we've got to. And I went, you go, Chris. Yeah. I don't even have to say it because it's being repeated. But that brings me to the third thing. When you start saying what the common language is and you start holding yourself accountable, now you start giving expectation of why we're doing this, the desired outcome.
That's good.
And so we're in the middle of a process right now that's driving a little bit, me, maybe you too, a little bit crazy because I'm ready to act and we're still in the information gathering.
Meeting.
Yeah,
matter of fact, I got home last night. My wife's like, well, how many steps you had today? I was like, I refuse to report. She's like,
because it was all
we're going on a walk, right? Because I've been with Mark in meetings all day trying to figure this out, right? But you got to do that. You got to figure
and that's going to drive that common set of outcomes that you're wanting. So it's all based on intentionality.
Yeah, I love that. So again, John's second point was you're making it public. We're talking about it to our team. We're talking about it to the enterprise. We're talking about it to you here today. John's last point is you're going to share what you're learning, which you're doing. I want you to close on this thought of growth. You and I could talk about this because we are the product, right? We've been doing it for a long time. It's what we believe in, and we've seen the growth. John mentioned something I think is really important in here. He's like, hey, start off by saying, what's one area of growth of choice? And then what's one area of skill? And you every year come out of your time and your reflection with, yes, a word of the year, but you also, being a person of faith, have a choice that you make of what you're going to study this year from a growth standpoint, tie it to leadership, tie it to your growth, whatever. And then you also have a skill set. Talk a little bit about the power of having both of those, how you come to them in your growth journey, and then what that looks like.
Yeah, so for me, the word for the year is kind of the focus. It's kind of the aspiration, the idea. The skill set comes in what I set with rigor. I have in my growth plan, I have daily, weekly, and monthly rhythms, things that I've got to deliver every day, every week, every month to complement the word, the concept.
Got it.
And so I think what I feel like John's talking about here is if you don't have skill sets to go along with the strengths, if you don't have rigors and disciplines to go along with the word, then it's going to sound nice, but you're not going to see that tangible momentum.
Yeah.
And that's what I have found. The people that are the most effective today, people that are listening and viewing this podcast, you're writing it down. I'm proud of you. Congratulations. I'd give you a standing ovation if I could. But it's the people that get an action item, something that is a skill, something that is a discipline that's going to bring the greatest amount of results after a conversation like this. I hope that between John, Chris, or myself, we've given you a note to capture. Yeah. And I'm sure we have because John has.
John
so we're
us.
good.
Yeah.
But what I hope just as much, not more than, but just as much is you put a skill, a challenge, an application to it that will make you effective. I do a year-end review every year. I'm reading a lot of books on momentum, but I'm telling you, it's these meetings that we're having that is making that more powerful.
Yeah.
The idea, the concept, the discipline without the skill application would render it useless. I would contend. Maybe a little bit of useful, but I'm going to tell you, learning without application is not growth.
Yeah. Remind us again, how many years you been with John?
23.
23 years. And you would admit, and you did, and I would absolutely back you up on this, the last 90 days, the greatest growth you've had. 23 years with the greatest leadership organization and leader that you and I know, and yet you're still growing at a pace. Like, that's what we should strive to do. That's what makes things better. As we wrap, one little question on this. You spend all this intentionality. You build this growth plan. How often do you review it? How often do you go and check it? How often do you hold yourself accountable to it? Because what I want our listeners to do is I want them to develop a growth plan because we want them. We know what's on the other side of that. It doesn't always get easier. Sometimes it gets even harder. Mm-hmm. But man, we want that for you because everybody deserves to be led well, and we want to add value to you. And this is the best way. And John talked about this is where he started. This is where you need to start. You can be intentional about it, and you can develop that, and then maybe never look at it again. And kind of how often do that rigor that you developed and you try to follow, as you wrap up, how often do you check that and hold yourself accountable to it and adjust it, or maybe just check the box?
So in the first 60 days of a year, I'm reviewing it every day. I reviewed it this morning. I'll review it tomorrow morning. I'll review it Saturday. I'll review it Sunday.
Got it.
I'm reviewing it every day. It's got to get in me for it to drive behaviors, to cultivate skill sets like we talked about, to develop habits.
Yeah.
So it's an everyday rigor that I will do every year for the first 60 days. I'm reading it every day. I'm familiarizing myself. Then it pairs back probably to once a week. And then by the third and fourth quarter, it is probably twice a month that I'm pulling it out and reviewing and reflecting. One of the disciplines that I have is in a year-end review this year. Some years it's monthly, some years it's bi-monthly, some years it's quarterly. I will go and assess and tweak the plan based on the effectiveness the plan has had then, so that plan that I got in one setting is a living, breathing organism that makes sense. I'll tell you a couple of things that I want to do to wrap today that I feel really strong about. There's two things that I want to challenge you to do personally because I'm so passionate about personal growth. And it's only the what is this? The 18th of the month. It's really, if you're listening to it live, some of you will listen to it. We're only 18 days into this year, and I want to challenge you to get really intentional.
Leadership is developed, not discovered. A truly born leader will always emerge, but to stay on top, natural leadership characteristics must be developed. So the question is this: How do we develop our leadership qualities and characteristics and our leadership skills? About a month and a half ago, I was thinking about this because I was in a Q&A, and while I was in teaching leadership, somebody raised that question. They said, John, you talk a lot about developing leaders. Can you give me a handle? Can you just give me some things that I can really remember that will help me to do so? And just off the cuff, I shared with them basically the outline that I'm going to give with you today with some content in between. So let's look at it. There are what I call the 3 E's of leadership development. The first is environment. I have found that leaders that are developed they're developed because they are in some kind of a leadership environment. This is incarnational. This transfers leadership is almost in an incarnational or a way that this is how leadership is fleshed out. Leaders do what leaders experience. And when I talk about environment, I'm talking about putting an environment in a person's life that they begin to experience leadership. They see it around them. They feel it. And they understand it. They understand it not because they sat down and took a lesson on leadership. They understand it because they were around leaders. They understand it because leadership principles and leadership values were talked about, lived out, fleshed out, embraced, okay? So let's talk about, let me define incarnation, since that's a phrase I use. It's a theology phrase from my background. But when incarnation is really connecting abstract ideas to human characteristics. In other words, it's taking something that is subjective or an abstract idea and fleshing it out until you can see it visualized in the life of a person or the characteristics of a person's behavior. And what I'm saying here is that leadership is more caught than taught. That's what the leadership environment is all about. Creating an environment where they catch leadership. Now, I grew up in a leadership environment. So I can talk a long time on what it means to have a leadership environment. And I can just say this. I can never think of a time when I did not realize the importance of leadership. I didn't have to have anybody sit down and say, John, it's really important for you to learn how to lead. It's very important for you to learn leadership characteristics. I saw them in my family. I watched them fleshed out around me. You need to develop a leadership environment until leadership is not something that is extraordinary and exceptional, but leadership is something that everybody does. Because really, leadership properly understood, everybody can influence and everybody can lead within an organization. The right environment allows people who are good to get better, just like a wrong environment allows people who are good to become worse. Look at environment as that which helps to create something for you that enhances already what you can do and what you already do know. Now, the second E is equipping. And that's probably the one we know the very best as far as developing leaders, because equipping is intentional, and basically leaders do what leaders learn. See, in the environment, leaders do what leaders experience. Now we're going to talk about leaders really do what leaders learn. And the function of leadership is very simple. It's to produce more leaders, not more followers. Now I'm going to read something to you. I just picked this up recently and I thought this is the approach. This is the wrong approach, wrong example of how most people get in trouble in this area of equipping. Henry Ford was a genius when it came to automobiles and the methods of mass production, but I believe his understanding of the worker was too limited when he asked. Here's what Henry Ford asked. Why is it that I always get the whole person when what I really want is a pair of hands? What was he talking about? The assembly line. He was just basically saying, I don't want anybody that can think. I just want somebody that can put the part there. Just 2 hands, just all I want. I don't want your mind. I don't want your spirit. I don't want your soul. I don't want your will. I don't want your commitment. I don't even want your loyalty. I want your 2 hands. I know most people, when they look at the people that they have in their company, their organization, this is a downfall of a lot of people. They don't understand the development of the whole person. They don't understand the big picture. They just basically see the job. And they see the job and they said, this is what's required for the job. So what do I have to do to teach you what's required of the job? And do you have the 2 hands? And can't you put that in the assembly line and keep it going? Equipping begins with expectations. Let's start there. to really develop a leadership equipping organization, it begins with expectations. And there are three I'm going to give you. I'll give them to you kind of quickly. One, leadership determines growth. One of the first expectations you place upon people when you equip them to lead is the fact that the reason you're equipping them to lead is if they learn how to lead, it will bring growth to the organization. The second expectation that I gave them in equipping them is that leadership can be learned. Leadership can be learned. The third expectation is that each leader equips leaders. And I was always very careful to say this to them: work your way out of your job. If you got a good job, that's great. Now, let me tell you what I want you to do. I want you to work your way out of your job. Go find somebody else, train somebody else, develop somebody else, equip somebody else. And, you know, in the hospital emergency room, there's a saying, and it's just a simple saying, because they got to do training and equipping quick in an emergency room, okay? I mean, it's not like you get a lifetime for this. And they what do? They say, watch one, do one, teach one. You have to be very intentional in how you're training them and equipping them. And the third E is exposure. How do I expose them? Now this is the inspirational side of developing leaders. Leaders do what leaders see. Okay? In fact, I love this statement. A little exposure upsets a lot of theory. I think kids should not be allowed to go to college 4 years in a row. I think they should go for 1 year to meet their friends, party. Then I think they ought to go get them a job. Because do you remember in class when teachers would ask you, profs would ask you, do you have a question on what I'm teaching? Of course we didn't have a good question. We didn't have any experience. We didn't even know what good question to ask. We were just stupid kids with a textbook, filling in blanks, making profs happy. The only way you're ever going to have real questions is to go out there and try it. Be exposed to it. Now, can I tell you something? I had no questions when I was working on my Bachelor of Theology degree. I mean, I had very little, and I went through it and got pretty decent grades and graduated, the whole deal. But can I tell you, 6 months after I had my first church, I had a boatload of questions. Now, what happened? Exposure. Now, all of a sudden, I'm into a real world, and all of a sudden, all the stuff that I need to know that will help me to be successful in life, I don't know. So when I talk about exposure, expose means to make accessible to some action or influence. Expose your leaders. I want to tell you what. Expose your leaders, first of all, to great leaders. In my world, what that's meant for, oh my goodness, 20 years, is that I've intentionally every month had what I call a learning lunch, where I sit down with somebody that's smarter than I am, faster than I am, better than I am, and I buy their lunch, and what that means is they get to eat and I don't. And I ask questions, and I just learn from them, and I just glean from them. Okay, what kind of exposure am I getting to great leaders? How do you learn leadership? How do you develop leaders? By exposing them to leaders. And let me, one more thing, one closing thought on exposing people. Expose your leaders to the works of great leaders. Here's what I tell people. You may never have the privilege of being around all the great leaders you want to be, but I can tell you right now, you can almost always get to the works of great leaders. The 3 E's. Environment, that's incarnational. This is what people experience. People do what people experience. Equipping, this is intentional. This is where we teach them. This is how they learn. And then exposure. This is something that they see, that they experience in their own life. The 3 E's of developing people.
Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results.